Hello, everybody, and welcome to Quantum Leap Revisited, a show that we do once a week where we celebrate the original Quantum Leap show. As usual, I have a wonderful panel of gentlemen with me. To my, I guess, would be right. To my right, it would be Ro from the Sacrif Podcast. He is the host of the Sacrif Podcast, also known as the Sacrif Scuttlebutt Podcast. He has his own YouTube channel, too. You can listen to his podcast on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon, and anywhere there's podcasts. And he knows a lot about science fiction. He's also a broadcast news veteran. He brings a lot of kind of behind the scenes technical knowledge that's always valuable to us. How's it going, Ro?
It's going fantastic. Good to be here.
Good to be here, too. Good to see you here. And we have, of course, the Script Doctor. Script Doctor is a seasoned veteran screenwriter that works in the industry. He teaches screenwriting on his own Patreon. He's also the creator and host of the show Scripts on Saturdays, a show that is every Saturday on his YouTube channel at 7 p.m. Eastern, where he discusses screenplays that either now or at some point have been considered by major studios. In some cases, even some of them have been greenlit. He goes over the screenplays, evaluates them, usually with a guest, and also great stuff. You should check what he does out. How's it going, Script?
It's going really well. Happy to be here tonight with you, gentlemen.
Yes, I'm happy too, and I want to thank everybody here in the chat. There was some technical thing there, but everything is smooth now, and it's always great to see you all here. So, nice to see the people that are here, whether it's Ron, Tex, Lisa, a lot of, and Kit Kat. Also nice to see everybody here. So with that being said, we're gonna just sort of dive into this episode. This episode is Runaway. It's in the third season. It's the 11th episode, and that's what we're doing this week. You guys both watched it, I assume, right?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
This one has the awesome Sherman Howard, who plays very complicated characters, and he plays them very well.
You're referring to the father.
Yes.
Yes, I wasn't. He seemed like a familiar actor. I didn't know why he seemed like he was familiar to me, but I agree with you that the guy is very solid. He is a very solid actor. I think that he definitely adds to this episode in the sense that you really feel, that character. You understand where he's coming from. I also think that the lady, what was the actress's name? I think she's also pretty good.
Sandy Faison? Yeah.
Yeah, she also seemed familiar to me, and I couldn't figure out exactly why these two actors seemed familiar, but they did seem familiar.
Well, she was a character actor. I think she was she was in Edge of Night, pretty much, Dr. Beth Correll, for like 185 episodes. So that's if you watch a lot of 80s television, you probably saw her mostly in that.
I see. And yeah, I mean, this episode, remind me the year it takes place in. It's the 60s, but I'm trying to remember what year exactly.
Oh, it's 64, July 4th, 1964.
I see. I feel like we've had a number of 64s recently. I don't know why. I feel like there was another one, or maybe I'm now confusing between a few of them, but I feel like we've had a few in the 60s recently.
No, I think this is the fourth time Sam has leapt into 1964.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a year that they and wasn't he born in 63? Is that what they usually say?
He was born in 53. But
53. Sorry, I apologize.
It was the Blind Faith when he was the pianist. Jimmy when he's the little brother to the, trying to get a job, and then the Halloween episode that we just saw recently with Stephen King. That was also 64.
Wow, they really like that year for some reason. Although I don't really know why, but it is it's nice to see. And I'm going to pull up the file in a second. As usual, you can tell some jokes. I always say that to Script. I honestly, it's from that Batman movie. I always love that part where he goes, "Oh, tell them some jokes, Alfred."
Script needs to learn how to juggle. So while you're pulling up the file, he can be juggling.
Oh, the closest I can do to juggling is shrug.
There you go.
But yeah, so this is this is an interesting episode, one that I I actually I can relate to a lot because I know a few people that were going through exactly what the mother was going through, and I understood where they're coming from, and I liked the fact that the dad was a very complicated character in this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's sort of a story that even though it takes place in 1964, I think it's a story that a lot of people can relate to because I think we've all been in situations where, a mother has children. We've seen it probably even in our own families, and then she wants to go do something. And sometimes there are conversations between a husband and wife. I'm working, you're working. What about the kids? Things like that. So even though this is very much in a certain time that it's happening, I think that the idea itself is something that is rather relatable. If that makes any sense.
Well, the thing is that she's going through an identity crisis, and one of my best friends, well, both of them, when they got married after their first kid when they were 17, um, she stayed home and she was the mom, and they had another kid a few years later. But she was so focused on the kids and just keeping their home clean and safe for the whole family that she wasn't actually expressing who she was anymore. She was turning into like a machine as opposed to a person. And we all picked up on it. Her husband picked up on it. It was like, we gotta find a way to balance this out because she's losing herself in the responsibility role, and she's not actually enjoying, spending time with her kids and her family because she's always picking up after them or always making sure that they're safe. All these other responsibilities, and this is something that I saw like in friends, friends of my friends and their parents, where, oddly enough, one of them was a stay-at-home dad, and he literally just when we started getting to high school, he was just like, I've got nothing to do all day. Like he finished all of the stuff he wanted to do by like 8 o'clock in the morning, and then he had nothing left. And he's like, I'm gonna go back to work. And his wife was fine, but when I've seen the inverse of it, it's like the question is, it's not about making the money. It's not about wanting like freedom or anything of that nature. It's just about like rediscovering yourself because you've actually done the biggest mistake of a parent, which is you invested so much time in regards to the children and family. You haven't actually taken a break to enjoy the sweet moments because you're thinking about the next problem that you have to worry about or the next thing that you have to focus on. And this was something that was a huge habit in prior to the 60s, but all the way through the 60s and 70s. And of course, the feminist movement, identified that, and their solution was not the best, in my opinion, but it did help some women, rediscover themselves. And the ones that didn't leave their families, live very happy lives. And I know some of those women, but it was an interesting story to tackle. I like the fact that I liked how they showed the spectrum of arguments that would be held with regards to this type of decision and this type of conflict that the mom was having.
I agree, and I thought that it came off as kind of on point and realistic. I can say that even though it was more in the 80s and 90s, even I witnessed, whether it's friends that I grew up with, situations that suddenly a woman goes back to work after a long time not working, starts building a career. And I've seen situations where that kind of marriage-wise went south. Suddenly there's like issues in the marriage, that some dynamic has changed. And in some cases, that doesn't work for some people, or it causes tension or things like that. So these kind of conversations, even though they were within that frame of the feminist movement and the 60s and whatever it is, I think that you could still look at that story and apply it to other times as well. Maybe the father wouldn't be as much of a douche in more modern times. Who knows? I mean, there's probably still douches out there, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. I mean, like I just said, like my two best friends, when he started noticing that his wife was not behaving like the woman that he fell in love with, he was like, I see what's happening here. She's so panicked and worried and stressed over the responsibilities of the kids that she's not taking a moment for herself. So he made actions to make sure that wasn't the case, because again, we were just out of high school. He was working to save up some money so that he could actually put his wife through college while he worked. And then that's what ended up happening. She went back to school. She got her career. Then he went back to school and he got his final career as well. And their kids are now actually really interesting. Well, one's an official adult. And the other one will be an adult later this year. yeah, like you have to make those compromises. In this case here, you see a family dynamic where it's a very traditional nuclear family of the 60s. That the husband is a successful man. He can support his family. His wife doesn't have to work. And he feels that, because work is work and it's labor and it's not something that she should feel burdened with. That's his point of view. She shouldn't feel burdened with it. And then there's also the other stigma, which is, well, if she goes back to work, that makes it look like I can't support my family because now we're a 2-income household. Right. As opposed to realizing what it actually
that really fits more into the conversation of the time. But yeah, I mean, it is in the middle of the 60s. In any case, we arrive here. Sam's in a car. He's butchy. He's a kid, and he has a sister that picks on him. He's with his family. They're driving. And when he realizes that he's a boy and he's driving in this situation with his family, he's like, oh boy.
13-year-old boy. And with a horrible name of Butchie, like, gosh, this poor kid.
And then the show starts. Here it says July 4th, 1964. Sandy Faison,
That's the mom.
Sherman Howard, Joseph Acker, I don't know, Amy Foster. That doesn't really mean anything to me, but let's see who directed. Written by Paul Brown. Who directed it? Michael Kadelman.
Kadelman, okay.
I don't think we've seen Michael Kadelman here before.
No, I don't think so. I think this is the...
Usually it's Zimmerman. It's the Z-Man, but now it's Michael Kadelman. So they're driving, and you can already tell this kind of tension that builds up between the... at first it's nice. There's like a song or something that reminds them they're seemingly having a nice conversation, but then somehow it doesn't... it doesn't turn out nicely. I mean, she puts this song on. It's a song that was important to them when they fell in love.
It's their song, yeah.
Their song. Yeah. And he's kind of just like a jerk about it, and he just smokes his cigarette. And at some point, she's like talking to him about a map, and he's like, honey, you don't know anything about maps.
You don't know how to fold a map.
You don't even know how to fold a map. Why are you even speaking to me now? She's like,
I thought the dad was going to be a super douche, especially when the news radio story had that news thing that
about affirmative action. Yeah,
affirmative action and all that stuff. I thought he was going to say something douchey, but then he's like, "Oh no, everybody deserves a chance in this country." I'm like, "Oh, okay." But I mean, later on, he does do some like douchey things, like Price was saying.
Yep. But he's a complicated character like that, and they got the best actor at the time to do that because that's the thing, right?
It's been so fantastic to see a lot of these episodes with actors that I know in more, I guess, modern times, but just to see them younger, it's been really it's been a treat.
Absolutely. And I think he does a really good job. And it's a nuanced thing. I also noticed that because if they were trying to go full on just douchey guy that you don't like, he would have been like, I don't like the affirmative action. Screw that. And then you're like, okay, I know who this guy is now. But instead, he actually seems like a decent family man. He's just sort of a 60s macho man that really doesn't accept that his wife wants to do stuff. And part of his douchey behavior also seems like a form of pushback, almost like he knows what's cooking in his wife's mind and he's trying to squash it by being a douche.
He's afraid of it because, again, he thinks it might challenge his stature within his family, right? Because that's he grew up. I mean, again, these are kids that they were born probably just before the Second World War. And maybe even in the Great Depression. So they probably have a very specific set of responsibilities and perceptives of what a family has to do, especially in hard times. And now because he's the successful, chicken retailer, and he's got a better life for his kids than what he has, anything that changes that image that he's created is going to feel like a threat to him.
Right. He's very old school. He doesn't accept that the wife wants to do stuff. He's the father. He's the big man. And there's a point here where she says, and she's like, fine, you know what's best for us. So why don't you do it? And then she leaves. Mm-hmm. She walks away, which shows that just the tension building between them and how he's sort of not in touch to what's happening. We, the audience, we see what's going on with her and we understand. And he's sort of just oblivious to it or seemingly oblivious to it. He takes this picture, and then Butchie gets tackled by his sister, and Al shows up and he is like, tells him, "You got to take it. You can't beat her up. You got to be Butchie. You're 13 years old. That's your big sister. She's going to beat you up."
I felt this kind of difficult to believe because a 13-year-old boy and a 14-year-old girl, he should be just through natural genetics, he statistically would be bigger and stronger than her by this point.
Right. I mean,
if he was 10 and she was 14, it makes way more sense.
Right. I think that the age difference wasn't enough for this to happen. But I mean, the idea is Sam could obviously just like brush her off, but he's being asked not to for whatever reason. So he's putting up with it.
And he's being played by an adult. So suspension of disbelief is there, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, we see the adult.
Yeah.
But what's funny is that Al doesn't. Al sees him as a 13-year-old boy.
And then at this point, she runs into this William guy, and he's like, oh, he's a widower, and he's all like sensitive and nice. He seems to dig her, and he's like, oh, I teach at the local college. You know, I did all this stuff. And, oh, it's so great. Oh, I'd love to come meet your daughter or whatever. Isn't she now? That's how. And then this is funny because Sam doesn't know what grade he's in. He's like, what grade am I in? He's like, I'm between grades.
Summer.
And then she's like, well, what does your wife do? Well, my wife is dead. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh. And then
she swoops in.
Then they quote Shakespeare to each other that Sam identifies.
But Sam identifies it, and the mother is surprised. She's like, how do you know Shakespeare? He's like, well. So yeah, that's kind of funny, that part, because otherwise I'm pretty sure like Butchie wouldn't know anything about it. But this scene is funny because Sam is trying to, get her away from this guy, thinking that this guy is bad news.
Mm-hmm.
Then the father shows up, and they're a bit of trying to think of the best way to say it.
Well, he's very friendly at first until the wife starts complimenting him, and that's when he gets on the whole possessive side, right? Because these guys knew each other, and
right.
And then there's a bit of a I don't have any other way to describe it, but kind of a dick swinging type of thing here, where he's like, well, I didn't need all the degrees. I have my own factory. I do this, I do that. And then he goes like, oh, I studied here, I teach there, I taught there. He's like, oh, you can't hold a job, can you? Which is like, when you're a professor, you actually go to different universities, so it doesn't work the same way, but it's just kind of poking fun at him.
Ideally, you want to score tenure at a university.
You do, but the fact that a guy taught at a few different places doesn't mean he's a bum. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly, especially prestigious schools like that, where even in the 60s, he's making at least the very high 5 figures.
Right. So I mean, again, the father wants to present him as like, you don't need a degree. This guy's a bum. He himself, like, I don't think he's making an effort to make the father look bad, but the father is pretty much, just being a jerk on his own. And then they leave. I think he gives her his card, and he's like, oh, we should definitely stay in touch, blah, blah, blah. So then when they're in the car, the mom is like, oh, we should meet up with William, and then the thing, like, we should do something with him. And she has his card, and the father is like, absolutely not. I don't need that. Like, we don't need to do anything.
We don't have time. We have a schedule.
We have a tight schedule. Yeah, we have a tight schedule. We can't change anything in our schedule now. So shut up.
Well, I mean, he's not really saying to shut up, but he's saying we got a tight schedule. And the fact of the matter is that Sam finds out why he's here. And that is because the mother here vanishes. And Al strongly believes that she ends up running off with another man. And this goes into an interesting story with regards to Al, because his mother left his father, but also left him and his sister Trudy. And like, he had no problem with the fact that she left his dad because his dad wasn't always around. He just had a difficulty that she left them, because that's a more evil thing to do. It's one thing for like the mother to take their kids away from a bad father. It's another thing for the mother just to leave their kids with a bad father.
Now here, Sam, what he does is he holds the card out the window, and he just throws it out purposely, and he's like, oh no, I lost it. She's like, oh, can you turn around and go find the card? He's like, are you crazy? And
we'll
then
never find it.
What'd you say?
He says, we'll never find it.
We'll never find it. And then, luck of the draw, the guy from before, he's like standing there with a flat tire. And Sam's like, no, keep driving. He can help himself. He doesn't need your help. And then the wife somehow, and this also shows that the father is a decent guy, because even though at this point he's already driven away and like Sam's like, supporting him, somehow at this point he's like, no, we got to go help him.
Yeah.
Like it annoys him that he's going to help him, but he feels it's the right thing to do. I
Well,
think
it's
that
part of his character. Like, he's a complex character. He's like, okay, I don't like the guy who's maybe trying to like encroach on my wife, but I know it's the right thing to help somebody when they're in trouble.
right. And then he arrives
you
and he's
have
like,
that conflict here between him. It's like, I hate the guy, but I shouldn't, just because I hate him doesn't mean he doesn't deserve my help.
and then at this point he's like, well, yeah, I guess all them PhDs didn't help you with your flat tire, did they?
Right.
He's like, well, I'm useless when it comes to cars. And then again,
More,
he gives
more
like
pissing contests.
more swinging, pissing contests. Also true. Let's see. So at this point, they're driving around, and the tension continues to build up. And then at this point, he like stops the car, and she's like, fine, you don't want to go, you can go. And then she runs out. And then Sam decides to run after her. He goes and he talks to her. In a way, this scene is kind of a foreshadowing of sorts.
But it's an endearing one too, because the thing that she does here, she reaffirms that she loves her family, she loves her husband, she doesn't want that to change. She just feels that she's suffering from identity crisis. She doesn't know who she is anymore. And the other part too is like, you have to remember, she's in her mid-30s at this point, because she got pregnant right out of high school before they went to college. So she's still relatively young, all things considered, even though at the stigma at this time, once you hit 30, you're considered middle-aged. But the thing is, she makes a great case. When you have teenagers, they're not at home all the time. So what are you to do if you're the person that's at home? And if you know how your home functions, you can get a lot done very quickly, and then you have the whole day to do whatever you want. And there's an advantage to that. But for her, she's like, well, I don't know what I want right now. I have to rediscover that. And she doesn't know how to express that. And she's reading that book that triggers essentially the modern feminist, or not the modern, but the first feminist movement. And that opens up a whole new world in the 60s for a lot of women. And in some cases, a lot of families were ruined. In other cases, a lot of families were saved. So
true. It can go both ways. Lisa Katryan says it was really windy when they filmed this. I guess it kind of looks windy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm surprised, like with the lighting. I mean, the sun is kind of blocking. Do you think this is like a creative choice, or they're just like F it?
I think they went for easy and fast.
They did, because this director did not come back for another Quantum Leap episode.
Yeah, for some reason.
Her coverage, you would never do that. You would have a bounce to either make an even shadow or an even light across her face. You wouldn't have all the leaves doing this.
Yeah, this is very weird with the leaves. I have to say that beyond the wind that Lisa Katryan mentioned, I think that the lighting here is a bit weird. Even Ro would agree.
I want to say that I totally agree with Lisa. I think much of this episode, up until maybe almost 35 minutes in, I was bored to tears with this episode. So,
well,
yes, Lisa, I agree.
It's very front-loaded with a lot of exposition through character, and a lot of unconfirmed goals, because Sam and Ziggy Al and Ziggy just didn't go far enough to figure out what exactly happened. Al made an assumption, and Sam is operating off of that assumption.
Ron Donofrio says she's opening a bit much to a 13-year-old. I mean, I guess so, but you know what? I think that sometimes mothers, when there's nobody around to speak with, if there's like a teenage son, they may say some things. Maybe the teenage son won't fully understand it, but it's not impossible that a mom would say something. Also, Sam is like inquiring. He's really kind of trying to get this information, and he's being very understanding. He also then tells her, oh, you're not fulfilled. You want to be fulfilled, blah, blah, blah. So, he shows like I would think she would be more surprised that he's so mature, although I think she says something about it. But, it is what it is.
I'm sorry, if this dialogue was written a little differently, because the dialogue to me seems like she's talking to an adult, and she's not. She's talking to a 13-year-old, like Ron says. But I think if the dialogue was I don't know, structured in a way that maybe she says the same thing, but from a mother's perspective to a 13-year-old, and not really kind of mixing words, but just, I don't know, a little, probably a little less adult might have softened that weirdness that went on during the scene, because the scene is kind of long. There's a lot of dialogue in the scene, and they're giving it to you all
And
as
the lighting is weird. That's really,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't help but notice that they couldn't just fix this lighting. This is like one of the biggest technical errors I've seen on Quantum Leap since the first episode we've seen. Tex Rogers says
Yeah.
this all sounds like an excuse to misbehave and avoid responsibilities. Maybe it is.
Maybe it is, but that doesn't seem like her intention here. Now, to your point,
Right.
Ro, the best parents I've ever met are the ones that never talk to their children like their children.
Well, I don't want to say dumb it down, but it just seems like for the scope of this conversation, and based on what Ron said, it does seem like she's talking to an adult and not a 13-year-old child. And I would have to go back and see what, exactly what it is, because obviously, I don't think that she's the type of mother to say, oh, your dad is an idiot and I don't know what's going on. So I would have to kind of, again, I
Yeah.
was like Lisa, I was paying attention to everything else other than what they were saying, because it was boring me to death. But
No, well, because they were going actually in circles a lot with the conversation. But the fact of the matter is that when Sam opens it up by basically identifying what her problem is, that is essentially when I've seen a lot of adults, even when they're even people like I talk to a lot of people that are in their 60s and 70s, and they still look at me like I'm a child because from their perspective, I am.
sure.
But that breaks the moment I say something that actually fits their perspective, because then it's like, oh, yes, you may be a lot younger than me, but you identified something that we both understand, and we are now talking based on that level of understanding. And that's what's usually happening in these types of scenes.
Sure, and it is refreshing when you actually have a conversation like that. So I can see where like the mother's mentality might like shift into, I'm just going to tell you what it is because you seem to understand. But like, I guess initially it was a little like jarring to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can understand. I mean, it's not a flawless episode, but for whatever it's worth, for some reason, I actually don't mind. I know a lot of people are getting annoyed with this episode. I didn't mind it, but at this point in the car, I'm trying to remember because it was a minute since I've seen it. There's something I think she wants to go back to school or she wants to work or
Right.
both. What's going on? He's like, absolutely not.
School. She wants to go back to school, and it's didn't Sam's character suggest school, or does she already want to go to school? I think because they had that talk.
Oh, maybe
And
he's the one that influenced her. I don't really
yeah.
know.
I think they kind of fed off of each other, but yeah, they were arguing about her going back to school, and the dad didn't want that. He even said, I thought or maybe she says it later, I thought the deal was, I would work and I would bring home the money, and you would, stay home and make the home, a nice place to live, et cetera, et cetera. So it's almost like they had a deal going into this marriage. And I know later on it's revealed that, she was pregnant with the first child, and that's why she didn't go into schooling and what she wanted to do, which is feeding the insecurities of what her life is now.
Right. Yeah, that also comes up. I still think that, back in those days, some husbands really felt, we had a deal.
Yeah, right.
It was a conversation, and not, it's like Script said, sometimes it could ruin a marriage, sometimes it could save it. This is an interesting, I found this episode somewhat interesting, but I understand. At this point, I think Al's just like, Sam, she still just disappears and nobody sees her. And then this sister comes and does like a wedgie, but she did a purple nurple before.
And then unfortunately we see Scott Bakula's lavalier mic on.
Oh, I didn't see that.
You didn't see it when he wedgies
No.
her? Oh yeah, it's right there. Up, you're going way too fast, man.
Was it before? What
Use
was
the
it?
arrow keys to move ever so slightly. But once he gets around to the wide shot, that shot there, and he turns around.
Let's see.
Yep. Keep going. Keep it going. Yeah, basically when his left side faces the camera, because this is his right.
I can't play it without doing stops because the thing doesn't like that.
No problem.
Am I getting closer?
No, you just went backwards. Oh, wait, hold on. No, yes, you're getting closer. A little bit more. He's going to turn around. Keep going. Almost. Almost. And keep going. Right. Oh, one more. Oh, you just missed it, but it's right behind his arm. Keep going. There.
Oh yeah, I see it.
There it is. That's his lavalier.
Yeah.
That's this thing here, yeah.
And it's so weird to have a lavalier on an actor shot in, because usually they boom a lot of this stuff just
This
for
is,
added
you know,
freedom.
Lisa was saying it was windy. If this was somehow outdoors and there was a lot of wind, maybe they
I-
went to the lavalier.
Yeah, I can.
Lavalier doesn't prevent that, though. That's the problem.
Well, there's types of lavaliers that do. I did a stand up with the Kennedy Expressway behind me in construction, and all I can hear was the reporter. So there are microphones that kind of are very unidirectional, but I would think that, you know, the same technology could be applied with an overhead boom. And especially because the actor at this point is kind of being roughhoused, you would think that you wouldn't have a lavalier on him because he's getting a wedgie and he's moving around and stuff. So that's interesting. I didn't notice that.
You wouldn't do that. I think we're getting more and more reason why this director did not come back.
Yeah. And it's funny because talking about lighting, I mean, they did most of these scenes under the canopy of the trees in this facility. And again, no fill light. It's just, let's go under the trees and we get what we get. Again, another kind of a weird, decision on the director's part to shoot everything under here.
It could be that they just didn't have much of a budget. It was sort of a fillery episode, and they couldn't even get the best director, so they got this guy. And they're just like, everything was just kind of run and gun. I have no other explanation for it.
Are pretty expensive and dense. Like, you have to remember, if this is like an existing camp, you have to shut that camp down for all the time you're shooting here.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe that's the reason why he was a one-off and they never brought him back. What I will say is, I just want to say that when I was in film school many years ago, I actually filmed something in a real-life diner. But there were people in the diner. I just needed a booth. And in order for the sound, even though it was a noisy diner, in order for the sound to work, I had lavaliers. And the lavaliers absolutely didn't pick up the diner sound. It 100% stuck with the actors talking. So I know maybe wind is a bit different, but I think that I agree with Ro that at least certain lavaliers are able to pick up just mainly what the actor is talking, and somehow not as much of the wind.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, that's stuff from the mid 90s to now. This is still the early 90s. You're looking
that's
at
true.
older,
that's true. There is a time gap between what I did and what this episode is. I won't say that you're not correct on that. I don't know what lavaliers they had in 1991 or whatever this is.
There was always omnidirectional microphones, and there's always been the same type of microphones in the 80s and 90s as we have now. But obviously the microphones that we have now are more sensitive and are more precise and direct. But there's always been directional microphones, omnidirectional microphones, unidirectional microphones. It's always, that technology has always been around, but it's gotten better as time went on.
Oh yeah, like I've seen the lavaliers just recently used on where you can actually put makeup over top of them and they still function and you never see it on the performer.
Yeah.
Those are like really great ones. The ones that are most commonly used, especially in a television show of this type, their microphones are what you'd see on like a talk show as well. So you have to find a very clever way to hide them. In this case here, I have no idea where they hit it on Sam, probably in his hat, and then aimed it towards the angle where his voice would be caught.
Or just taped under his shirt.
But his shirt is so closely pressed against his body here. So
it's still, I mean, you can still put a capsule over the mic element. And if you move your shirt, you're not going to hear a lot of it. It's funny. I just remembered I don't know if you guys remember when the show ER did an actual live show and there was no editing. It was all done live.
Yeah, I remember that.
There was a scene that I remember going back like we are now on the VHS recording. There was a scene where a patient was rolled in into the emergency room, and you know the heart monitor stickers that you have when the doctors rip you open and they put the heart monitors on you. One of them was white, and it led obviously behind him, and the other one was black, but it was very visibly a lavalier microphone that was just taped to the heart sensor, which cracked me up.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's how they're doing that.
I always steered away from that show. I thought that show, there's probably a target audience for it, and I wasn't one of the people that should watch it.
It was a big hit.
I know. I think the ladies liked it. Usually those shows, it seems like shows for ladies. I try to steer away from shows for ladies. Sorry, Lisa. I don't mean... It's not that I don't like the ladies. I'm just saying that if there's a show that's designated for ladies, especially, then maybe I don't watch it.
It's hospital shows?
Hospital shows, they're always for ladies.
I just noticed that Nick is in here.
Nick isn't here. He's not saying anything, but he's...
Hello. It's a little bit noisy where I am still.
Oh, you don't have one of those lavalier microphones that we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes.
No, I do not.
That's why I like Lisa. She wrote, I never watch medical shows. Lisa has good taste in shows. She knows that those shows are annoying.
That's why
she's here. Those shows, I don't know why they just... First of all, I just want to quickly say, anything in a hospital is already a bummer. I don't like all the stuff where people are sick in a hospital. I feel like when I watch TV, I prefer not to deal with that. So already, I don't love that. Whether it's a comedy or a drama or a comedy drama or whatever it is, I don't love it if it's in a hospital. So and then usually there's also the additional twist that there has to be like good-looking doctors that the ladies like, and they have to have romances with other female doctors or whatever it is.
I've never.
That's why I would have picked you for that, because all those shows are more about the nurses and doctors hooking up than it is about the medical stuff.
But, right, it's about them hooking up, but it's too much talking about feelings. If already to watch a show about hooking up, like back in the day, there was Dallas. So J.R. Ewing would walk around and he'd do all these business deals and he'd be screwing everybody over in business. And then he had like 7 girlfriends. That's the kind of thing that I can somehow be intrigued by. But the medical thing where they talk about their feelings literally in hallways for an hour, I really don't need it. It's not for me.
Yeah, it's also... having family that work in the medical field, it's also mostly BS. Like they don't have time to really talk about their feelings. It's only on their day off, so they do that, and they don't do it with their colleagues usually, unless they're very drunk.
Tex Roger says, I heard shades of the new Quantum Leap from Price. I guess that's how I talked about that Quantum Leap thing. So maybe that's why it was reminiscent of how I would criticize that annoying show. In any case, back to the, we're looking at this. Is this the part where she, they start arguing and she's like, I don't even have an orgasm. Is that here?
No, she said she doesn't have an orgasm scrubbing floors right after.
It was when he threw the book away.
Yeah.
Later on.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, first of all,
she's wearing the same outfit. So yeah. But if Al's outfit, the collar on his jacket is ridiculous.
For starters, they're kind of like, the husband is unhappy that she's talking to him, and there's all this shit going on.
Well, he caught him touching her leg.
Right.
Yeah. Like he says.
So right now,
he's like you put your hand on her and held it there. Like
yeah.
Like that's not a cool thing for even a widower to do.
Right. So. Then at this point, they're blowing off steam. And I think that at this point, the father suddenly is surprising. He's like, he actually says that he does like the mother, meaning like, it's not that he doesn't like the mother. He's just kind of a douche.
No, he loves her very much. He got her a 15-year anniversary ring. And that's when Sam realizes, but what's her name is 14 and a half.
Yeah. Oh, right.
And it's like, Yeah, so she was
maybe I
pregnant before
meant
he got married.
16.
And that's when he realizes what happened. It's like he's wondering, did his dad deliberately knock up his girlfriend so that she wouldn't leave him to go to Northwestern because he loves her that much? And it's actually more complicated than that, because the two of them, I mean, the mother actually generally does love him. The problem is that he's just not able to comprehend, or at least want to admit, that she's not happy in this portion of her life right now. And
Right.
Well, and I
from his
think
perspective, he's doing everything right, but she's still not happy. It's like, well, something's not working right now, and it can't be me. It's got to be you. Like, that's his perspective, and he's not realizing that it's both of them have to work together.
Scribe Light said, "Good evening, everyone. Hope you have a great show." Yeah, Scribe Light is a good friend of the channel. Just wanted to highlight that. Super Mario Brothers is 3 is here. He says a lot of interesting things. And when I look at this,
so. Can I chime in on this one a little bit? Because
Sure.
I missed the earlier part. I really
Go ahead,
like that they set up, and Sam mentions this when he's talking to the dad, is that at the beginning of the episode, when they had the thing about equal rights and voting and all that, and he said, that's people are people, and he showed this is a good guy. He's not some bigot. He's not some. Now, he's still, has the role. Well, I'm the man. I go to work. I provide, and he takes pride in all that. And so he's like, why is she not happy? I've provided her everything she could want. Why is she not happy? And I like they're kind of showing it's a lack of his understanding. It's not a lack of his thinking less of her.
Right.
And one of the things, just like men kind of have midlife crisis when they hit a certain age and they realize they're stuck at their job and all that. I think a lot of times women who raise a family, when those kids are starting to get close to the age where they don't need their mom anymore, and they're going to be out of the house soon, and that has been the focus of what has brought purpose in their life, they can have kind of that midlife crisis too. Like, I've done nothing for myself. I've done it all for my family, and my family is leaving me. And so the same time she's reading this book that Sam's aware of, and a lot of those thoughts are basically down in that book, an early feminist book talking about that. So it's welling up her in this desire, and she's getting depression when she's looking. She has all this stuff, but she doesn't find fulfillment in life.
And well, she feels like, because her kids are growing up and they're actually like able to take care of themselves, where's the meaning now in her role, right?
Yeah.
And it's something like I said earlier in the show with good friends of mine, and even some of the mothers that I knew of friends of mine. It's like, yeah, you get to that point where you realize they're starting to look like they question, did I put my life on pause to raise these children and support my spouse, or and if so, can I pick up where I left off, or did I just basically give up what my life really was for these these children and my husband, and now I've got nothing left to live for until they have grandkids? Like, there's a huge gap there, and it's a very terrifying one to explore. But so if you have if you've married the right person and you're going through that, they're going to identify it, they're going to help you along the way, and you will find something that will restore that meaning and restore that value, because at no point does the mother ever say that she's regrets her life choices.
Right.
She's just wondering.
No, she doesn't regret it. I think she even says she doesn't regret it.
No, she actually was wondering, like, what am I going to do now? Like, she's thinking about what's going to be what is going to be her purpose in the next 5 years when the kids go off to college and there's nobody at home and it's just her.
I want to address this because Super Mario Brothers 3, I started to read it before, but we kind of moved along. But I just want to address it. He says that we learn about Al's interest and passion, which mirrors Dean Stockwell's passion of taking care of the environment. I think that we've seen it in a number of episodes, and I think maybe a few other people in the chat said it. It's true here and there. Once in a while on this show, you see the Al character, almost out of character, say something wonderful like about preserving the environment. And I think the reason for it is that in real life, Dean Stockwell really believed in stuff like that. Not that there's anything wrong. I mean, generally speaking, it's not that I don't like saving the environment or preserving it. I just think that sometimes maybe certain parties take advantage of the environment theme or subject for different gains and different things. Sometimes it could be academic grants, and I guess what I'm saying is that there's a lot of money in this environment business, and I don't know if it's always everything is on the up and up. But that's just my personal opinion. Meaning it's more political and money, and I'm not saying that it's important if there's like if you're having a party in a forest, it's best not to throw the garbage out like in the forest. You should pick it up and throw it in a garbage can. You know what I mean?
No, I mean the environmentalists in the 90s that were the majority of them were all about clean water, clean air, no pollution.
That wasn't bad. That the
Yeah.
90s version wasn't bad. I think that later sometimes things go like, extremely fanatic.
Yeah, a certain guy named Al Gore kind of escalated some perceptions on that.
But I do agree that in the 90s when they were talking about this stuff, people were like the ozone layer, clean water, like you said, don't throw out garbage like where it doesn't need to be. These are all, that's positive. I don't have any issue with that.
I've actually been to some cities that experienced real acid rain. It's actually horrifying.
And
luckily we don't have that anymore because the right things were already taken care of. So that problem is solved. But now some of the people that have solved that problem have moved on to something else that looks less likely it could be ever solved because maybe or not, it's not exactly confirmed of being real.
Tex Rogers says, "Give a hoot, don't pollute." Yes, I remember that alley that used to tell us to clean up. So yeah, I mean, I guess just to sum up what I'm trying to say is that during the 90s, I think there was something just more innocent and even positive about the way people cared about the environment.
Yeah.
In more recent years, I sometimes don't know, I don't have the same feeling about it always. But that's just me. I'm not saying that other people shouldn't feel the same way. I know if you love the environment and you have your beliefs, I respect that too.
It's the only environment we have.
Yeah,
True.
I think what's political is people's view of how to address it, and people file trends where they're told, oh, this will solve it or that'll solve it. But I think even back in this time, watching some of the Doctor Who episodes from the 70s where they talk about by the late 90s, New York and England is going to be under water due to global warming.
The green, what's that?
Greenhouse?
The greenhouse effect?
No, the Doctor Who thing. It's called the green.
Yeah. That was something but the entire Pertwee era, he constantly makes references to how mankind is going to destroy the environment, and it'll only be afterwards that they'll learn. And he makes comments about that in every other episode.
Maybe
that was the fifth Doctor or sixth Doctor.
That's the third Doctor.
Petrie. Okay.
The Green Death. It had John Pertwee in it.
Yes.
That was the one I was thinking of. I couldn't remember.
In that one, an environmentalist was the villain, as was in the Invasion of the Dinosaurs.
True.
So they had environmentalists who were so passionate they were willing to kill off humanity were the villains in a couple of the episodes.
Yeah, the eco-terrorists. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was funny, watching those episodes and have them talk about how, by 1995, England is going to be under the ocean because of global warming. And that was in the 70s,
Because it's funny. Do you remember, maybe you weren't old enough, but do you ever remember when Carl Sagan spoke to Congress about what the greenhouse effect is and how it's actually not terrible, but if we had a more broader visual spectrum, we wouldn't be able to see each other because of what the greenhouse gases and carbon does. But because of that, we need it in order to keep ourselves alive. But there's a very delicate balance to that. And he was basically saying, although it wasn't interpreted as such, he's basically saying we're actually in a sweet zone right now, and I don't think we're going to be changing anytime soon.
And Tex Rogers says it's the goodbye show for Joe Grant. Yeah, and the goodbye there is kind of weird. She's like, hey, I'm going to marry this guy. She falls in love with some douche, and then you never see her again. I think that's what happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not in that show. You see her again in the Sarah Jane Adventures, but...
That's 40 years later almost.
Yeah.
I know.
it's fine, but yeah, at that moment, her departure seemed rather abrupt, and it's funny that it wouldn't be the first time that they had like, oh, I'm getting married, I'll see you later. They did that, I think, with Susan also,
Yes.
and with
For
others.
Susan, it was more shocking.
Right.
But they all serve better than Dodo, who the doctor just left her somewhere, and then in the books they decided to write off that she went insane and killed herself. So
Lisa Ryan
gosh.
says Doctor Who is the only Doctor I watch. I find myself really, really aligned with Lisa Catrine today.
Yes.
She
That's
gets
funny.
me. That's what I can say.
but
And
I would just say that, like, there's a difference between all the stuff that's political there and just the messaging of, hey, don't throw trash around, don't be wasteful, recycle, reduce, reuse, kind of the basic stuff of, because when you think about it, in the past, it was that way. Everybody just like going down the road on a family trip, eat a candy bar, throw the wrapper out the window. That was like the mindset for years before we just became so populated and so many people were doing that people started seeing, wow, that's a lot of trash.
although this comment is completely out of left field, and I'm not sure what it has to do with Quantum Leap, Linkin Park went woke. Instead of finding another man singer, they went with a woman singer. I will say this. I don't know why I'm addressing it, but somebody left the comment, so I will address
Way
it.
to read the room there, guy. But okay.
Right. He's like, screw it. Screw the Quantum Leap thing. I'm going to talk about this Linkin Park thing. But I want to just answer and address that. Personally, from what I can tell, this lady that Linkin Park chose, I think that she could sing all right. For me, though, I tend to agree that should have been probably... I'm not a big fan. If you have a band and it's a bunch of men with guitars doing like, manly things, and even if your lead singer passed away, find another dude that can also, slip into
Or
that
start a
role.
new band.
I tend to agree.
Conversely, though, how would we feel if suddenly there was a dude on the Spice Girls?
Yeah. You know what? That would be
It would be
weird.
weird.
I wouldn't want a dude in the Spice Girls either. And the same thing here. I think that it wasn't necessarily the best choice, but if they like it, that's up to them and they can do whatever they want. Thankfully for me, Linkin Park has always been kind of overrated. I think they have a few hits that like are all right, but honestly, I've never been a huge fan of theirs. So I guess like I'm not emotionally invested here. If they want to put a lady there, I mean, she seems decent enough, but it's it doesn't really matter. I don't think it's going to improve the music, which the majority of it is kind of mediocre. But I digress. Let's go back. Let's go back to Quantum Leap. Sorry, Ro, if you're a big Linkin Park fan.
That segment was sponsored by
Linkin Park. Linkin Park. We got a female singer now. And now back to our thing. So this lady is here, and the orgasm thing. He throws the book. What does she
It's
say?
funny.
About
I think I was turning away because obviously I was listening to their conversation. All of a sudden she said the O word. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah,
Doesn't get an orgasm cleaning the floors.
Listen, if I met a woman that did, I would be very worried.
You're not doing it right, lady.
And then at this point, though, he keeps thinking that it's this guy that takes her away, but then he finds him and he's like, no, like we decided to part as friends and she went her own way. He's like, okay. And then it turns out that this whole time, all of these things have been red herrings, and she actually did she slip and fall? How did she?
She slipped and fell, and it wasn't until 1993 where they identified the body based on the dental records.
I see.
And so,
oh, that's right. Some Al said that early on. You expect me to remember all that from the beginning of the episode all the way now?
No, he says that right when they find the other car.
But he does say
still at that point they think that it was the other guy, that she went off with them.
yeah, because Al is still trying to figure out more of what happened because they don't have the full history yet. But what they're really saying is like, Butchie never finished high school and he's kind of, went crazy. His older sister got pregnant as a teenager. And all this, like these bad things happened because the mom wasn't there and the family kind of fell apart. And then we have this awesome scene, and it is an awesome scene where the dad is like, okay, I got a rope. I'm going to rescue my wife. And he asks the professor for a little bit of a hand. He's like, maybe we should get the park ranger. He's like, you know what? Screw you. Go get the park ranger, buddy. I'm going to take care of this.
I'm going to take action.
And it's like, okay, there's character there. I mean, he's like, yeah, we get it. And then, I mean, one thing that I felt was kind of interesting, but also a little bit showing how much he believes in his family is that he lets his son tie himself off and then go down to rescue his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that interesting because as a dad, I don't think I would be okay doing that.
Well, I mean, you don't have teenagers yet, right?
True. But yeah. I mean, I just,
because when I was a teenager, my dad put me through a lot of weird, fun stuff. Like, well, it's slightly dangerous, but he was always there to make sure I was okay. Because, listen, if you're a good parent and they're in a crisis and you know that your kid can handle it, you make sure that you two work together. And if you don't think that they can handle it, well, then you still got some more lessons to teach that kid. And that's part of your responsibility as a parent, right? I mean, that's what it is.
Well, this would have been his last lesson, because if he couldn't handle it, that was it. He's off.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. But I mean, it's like, lose your wife and the mother of your children, or, take a risk, and try and save the mom. And the other part too is like, I mean, yeah, it's a dangerous thing, not an ideal situation, but nobody's coming for help at this point. And if she's frozen in place and she's barely holding on, you've got to send someone down there to get her. And yeah, I mean, if this is my situation, I'd probably have tied the rope off to the tree, and then I would have gone down with the rope around my waist to get them.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah,
probably would have been better. Or I would have just yelled down there, "Honey, suck it up, grab that rope, let's go."
That doesn't mean anything when you're basically in shock.
This scene to me took way too long.
The pacing was a little off on it.
I don't know. I feel like maybe it's also, we were talking about the director and how this episode was made. I think maybe some things could have been done differently. But overall, I mean, it's a good scene. They save the mother. It's a touching family moment. Mm-hmm. And then, now he saved her. And like they're back at this kind of campsite or whatever it is. And now they're all like goo-goo-eyed and they're cool with each other. The mom has like a problem with her leg. But, at the end, he picks her up and he dances with her just by like picking her up, showing that he's, well,
he has him play her song.
Yeah, and then they play her song and he's carrying her and it's all great. And then meanwhile, just the end of the episode, I love the stop sign on Al's jacket. That's just the best.
and on his elbow pads, yeah.
You got it from
And then basically this sister tries to do a wedgie, but this time Sam's like, nope, you're not going to do that anymore. And then like he puts her in a place and to
me, this scene of her hanging over the edge of this well was more suspenseful than the rescue of the mother on the cliff.
I'm surprised that they even had this thing with the well. It's kind of a naughty scene that the brother would hold the sister over the well.
You would not want to teach younger brothers that this is how you deal with your older sister.
Yeah, I don't know if the lesson. This episode is a bit strange. It's a strange episode for sure.
It's
what I'm surprised is that it hasn't been given the Lilo and Stitch coverage, and they haven't like CGI'd the well out and put something else there less threatening.
Right.
Oh, you're right. I'm surprised they didn't do that. Or that there isn't like a trigger warning, like some things that happen in the episode. Or that before the episode, like usually what they have now, sometimes they have a person that comes out and talks to you before the episode.
Oh, yes.
Hello. Today we're going to watch a classic
like Whoopi Goldberg did with Tom and Jerry.
Yeah. And there was also with Blazing Saddles or something where they had some lady come out and talk to the audience for 15 minutes. That was just the biggest bummer I've ever seen. I don't know why that lady talking to me for 15 minutes like made me sad. It's just like, lady, let me watch this movie. Shut up.
I'm sorry. Why I got it on DVD and Blu-ray because I don't have to listen to that garbage.
I mean, I want to make it clear. Even if it was a dude that came out and said it, I'd say, dude, shut the fuck up. It's not like, oh, sorry, Nick, I apologize. I am sorry that I said that.
Well, I mean, I get, because like even before, when stuff is rated certain ways, like it'll say, I know, but they'll say like strong language or this. I'm not 100% opposed to that, but on some of this older stuff, when they're coming back, and it's not that it's something that wouldn't pass the censors as far as like nudity or language or gore or something like that, it's like cultural acceptance warnings, and scenes in this movie may be considered problematic by today's standards. We're warning. It's like, really, we're watching old Looney Tunes, and there's some things, but it's like you cannot shelter people from the fact that this stuff existed.
Mm-hmm.
And
I also wanted to apologize if there's wholesome people listening to this. Usually on Quantum Leap Revisited, I keep my language very clean. I don't know why.
There's wholesome people here?
Everybody is super wholesome, and I said a naughty word, and I take responsibility for that. But keep talking.
Well, cover your ears, Lisa.
Here's a fun fact. I remember when I was in Greece for a brief time, there was a movie playing on their television. They had a disclaimer up there, and when I translate it, it basically said there's going to be an image in this show that is going to be deemed offensive, but it's not offensive in this culture. And you know what that image ended up being? Some guy who was holding out his thumbs up for hitchhiking, and that was like considered an offensive thing in Greece.
Oh, wow.
At least the area of Greece that I was in. And I'm like, oh, right, because that's similar to, the old Shakespearean insult, I bite my thumb at thee. And
oh, yeah.
So, and apparently it's in other regions a little bit more north, more east of there. I think even in like Afghanistan and Pakistan, if you hold out your thumb like you're hitchhiking, it's considered an insult. And so that's one thing you have to kind of keep in mind.
So Lisa Katrin says, seems out of character for Sam. And I agree. I think it's strange that he put her over the well. I don't really...
I was amazed at how quickly he was bothered by the sisters teasing.
Well, I think that didn't Al say you got to put her in her place, and this is how to do it before you leap out?
Yeah, he says that Ziggy came up with the big sister effect.
Right.
Or the big sister principle, and he's like, "What is that? Oh, you got to stick up for yourself." and
that was the solution.
What he did, and I mean, again, they're alluding to something here that is actually a rule with regards to Sam. Actually, we've already seen it in the episode where he leapt into the mom, and that is Sam's essence and soul is still that of at this point here, like a mid 40-year-old man with an athletic build. So he's got the strength of a man still. He's holding a kid, under his arm over a well.
His bigger sister.
It's still
his older sister, who is still not taller than him.
I don't know.
They're only a year apart. And
still questionable. Tex Rogers, by the way, he appreciates that the show is generally clean, our show, and that's cool. Tex, try our best. And I mean, what happens here? He does the thing. What does she say to him? I'm trying to remember. What does she say?
She says that she's not going to bully him anymore, and then he puts her down, and then she calls him a twerp.
You're not so bad for a twerp.
Yeah. Oh,
Perfect episode. If they're going to do a rerun episode, this was a perfect episode to go back to for after this one.
Yeah. That's true. So this was a good episode. This was the one. I always remember this one because it had that van. I don't know why the van and the shady guys.
That's right.
Somehow I don't know. We don't usually have that type of chuckle on the show, especially when it's like a serious subject matter. But I remember when we saw those vans with those guys, I don't know why there was kind of a bit of a chuckle here.
The dirty windows and the dirty.
They were like the most obvious bad guys ever.
Right.
I guess that's why we were laughing.
The murder van, yeah.
The murder van, yeah. So in any case, the thing ends. There's the credits. And we went through the episode, which is great. And somebody wrote, what is this? Tim's Talk says, Row is the way.
What's up, Tim?
I guess it's somebody who likes your style, Row. The murder van, yeah. So in any case, that's the episode that we just saw. I'm so happy that we were able to put it together. I want to thank everybody also. Before we go one by one and just have some thoughts about it, I want to thank everybody that's here because really there was a technical thing that kind of I didn't do correctly, and then I fixed it. but everybody showed up. A lot of the regulars here, and I really appreciate that. And of course the panel. So I guess let's start with Ro. What did you think about this episode about Runaway?
Wasn't my favorite. It was super weak for me. Like I said, the first almost 40 minutes were very boring. I didn't like it that much. There's been better ones, but this one was kind of like super, super meh to me.
This was like your least favorite one ever?
Nah, I don't want to say ever, but it was, if
you
I'm
had to like it more than the biker gang one, right?
I don't know. If I were to take a clump of episodes that I didn't like, I mean, I would probably bunch this in that corner. Wasn't for me, it wasn't anything to talk about. Didn't like it.
All right, that's
weird.
fair enough. Is there anything that you did like about it?
Oh, Nick is in the murder van.
I got home from work. I haven't even gone into the house yet. I'm still just sitting in my work van.
Is there anything I like?
Beetlejuice.
The actor that everybody was talking about. I like him in other things, and it was cool to see him as a younger actor in this.
Sherman Howard. Yeah.
I liked him. I don't know. I didn't like a lot of this episode, and maybe subliminally it is because of some of the weird directorial choices that the director made. And obviously, he, like everyone's saying, he's never came back to do another one for obvious reasons. But I don't know. It was just it was so much to me. It was so much a quick chop job of an episode that I couldn't wait for it to be over.
Yeah, well, fun fact, that director gained a little more notorious reputation because he was the one that directed the Cowboy Bebop Netflix series. Like the 5 episodes of it. He's done a lot of TV directing, handful of episodes here and there. I don't think he's very good in my opinion. I think he's like he's like a director of Traffic. He doesn't really have a stamp on things.
Mm-hmm.
And currently he's working for FBI International, which I think is the dumbest show in the world because you should not have an international branch of the FBI.
Oh yeah. True.
Well, I mean, so Script, what did you think of this episode?
I think this one suffers mostly from the directing because this episode actually has subplots to it. So you have the main plot, which is, save the mom. The subplot is why is the mom upset? And then you also have Al's subplot is the fact that he's got a bias towards what the mom might do because he's suffered the same thing. So this is actually a really solid script, but it doesn't come across as strong because the directing isn't really there. And I get the feeling that the actors ended up having to do a lot more work to make this episode work out well. And the director just wasn't there. It wasn't there with the game. And the crew was just kind of doing the best they could to try and match this. And I guarantee there's probably some stories about how difficult of an episode this was to shoot.
I'm sure there is. It's something worth looking into at some point. I guess, Nick, just so you know, the reason I said Beetlejuice is I saw the second Beetlejuice movie, which I didn't love. But the lighting there of all the characters, they're kind of like in the afterlife. And the way you look in the van now is like you're in the Beetlejuice movie. That's
why I tried to get extra light from a spare tablet, and it didn't have a flashlight. So it's just the glow of the tablet.
If this was like Halloween, if this was Halloween, this would be like the best lighting ever. Like for you to be on this stream. I actually really like it. By the way, I think it's cool.
So I'm going to say, despite the Cowboy Bebop bombshell that Script just dropped, I'm not going to let that taint my view. I actually really love this episode. I like the family road trip aspect, and I thought it was funny. Like they went to a place where they go and with buffalo chips, which are, really monkeys.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, I was actually this morning watching, what is it? Theme Park Extinction or something like that. One of those YouTube channels that did like the 4 North American Flintstone theme parks, and one was by Mount Rushmore and one was by the Grand Canyon, and there was just like statues of the houses in the Flintstones but it was just a place that made money based on that people would be going to this one famous thing and they would see that on the side of the road and be like, we gotta go.
I went
a
to
little
that.
bit that's
I think as a kid I went to that Flintstone thing.
well, they did a really cool documentary covering the families in that, plus they covered the two in Canada. So
I wasn't in the ones in Canada. I was ones in
Yeah.
at least one in the US. I don't remember next to what it was or why I was there, but I remember as a little kid something with some Flintstone thing, and it's sort of
Yeah.
how you described it.
Yeah, it was interesting in how it grew later, and then actually how the movie gave it a boost, but also caused them trouble because suddenly the rights became important when the live action movie came out. But anyways, getting off on a tangent, I really like the family aspect of it. I like them dealing through. They didn't just show the dad as like this horrible, awful person. And I feel like if this episode was made today, Sam's goal would probably be to liberate the mom from his father. But here it's putting the family together. Yes, their marriage has troubles, it has things, but it's only going to do their family worse if they end up apart. And then it comes out, well, she isn't really going to leave them. It was because she died. They thought she'd left, but she had died. And so the stakes at the end, I just kind of like the through line and them working it out. And I really appreciate that was something that used to be more common in older sitcoms and stuff, that yes, they'd have fights. They show that there's difficulties in marriage, but the fact that they work it out and they didn't make one party out to be the mega villain. The husband wasn't the dumb dad who's an istinophobe. They made him a nice guy. He had opinions. He had what might be considered backwards opinions by today's standards, but it didn't mean he didn't love his wife, that he didn't want the best for his wife. And if anything, when she was saying the things she was saying, I think it was his pride was a little hurt, because in some way it made him feel inadequate. Like somehow he hadn't provided happiness for his wife. And he's like, I go to work, I work extra hard so you can have this and you can have that. And I do that for you so that you don't have to work. Like he was having trouble comprehending why that wasn't some blessing for her. And, I really liked the messaging in this, because the messaging also wasn't that she should just be home and be grateful either.
Right.
It was,
Right.
it was meeting in the middle and understanding that they both loved each other and that they needed to really be open and listen to each other.
I want to just answer this question here from Tex Rogers. Price of Reason Live is next week. Future Boy, 8.5 months. I believe it's 8.5 months.
Yep.
I think the one after that is Future Boy.
Correct.
I think people are asking. Future Boy is a cool episode. That'll be nice to get to that one. 8.5 months is perfectly fine too, but we'll get to them one by one. And so hopefully I settled that. And then somebody here agrees with you, Nick. I'm trying to find.
I agree with him.
Oh, okay. Rhonda and Ferris would agree, Nick. It is nice that they worked it out. What were you saying, Script?
Well, I also agree with Nick, because one of the dynamics between like the husband and wife relationship, especially in the 60s, is that even though the husband works and provides, he still has to come home and be a parent, and he still has to come home and make sure the house is in order for, help around and be the handyman and all those things. That is the him leaving for the job is just that one extra aspect that in that generation the wife just didn't have, right? So by comparison, it feels like he has a more fulfilling life, even though it's not the same roles exactly, because even when he comes home, it's like, okay, he's no longer Bob at the office. He's now dad, the handyman, the fixer of problems and things that whatever mom couldn't do at that point. There's something that feels like there's more responsibility going on there, and more things to contribute, that there's no off hours for dad. But with mom, if there's nobody at home and you finish all your chores, what are you to do? Right? You feel like you're not accomplishing anything. You feel like you're just waiting for the next, waiting for people to come home so you have something to do. That is essentially like a form of cabin fever that will drive a person nuts. And some women, especially after they read, the Betty Friedan, the Betty Friedan book, they picked up hobbies. Some knitted, they sewed, they paint, they gave piano lessons to kids in the neighborhood and all that stuff. They did something with their day, and that's how they were able to have a more fulfilling life. Not every woman was able to figure that out for themselves, and they addressed it in whatever way they did. But I mean, even to this day, like I've been with my girlfriend. We're going on 4 years in November. She has a job that she loves. She does want a family, and she's willing to take a break to have that family, but she does want to go back to work because she knows the relationship that if she's working and then coming home to a family and then, we're back and forth, and because I'm a writer and I can work from home, I can be at home while still working. There's a balance there where we both feel like we're having our own lives, but they're also very much focused on what we would be with our kids. Like that was the goal. There's no on and off switch, no this or that thing. It's like you can have the full fulfillment of it, and you can make certain sacrifices to make that work. And that was a big issue for a lot of men all over the world at this point, because they figured, well, isn't it just the money, the home, the safety, the reliability? Isn't that the most important thing? It's like, well, no, it's knowing that you're contributing to that in every capacity that you are capable of doing. That is important. And when you see, your spouse doing way more, and sometimes it'll be stressful, sometimes it won't be, but you just see them doing way more, you feel like, well, I want to do way more too, or maybe I want to relieve some of that stress or that responsibility as well. And some men are fine with that, some weren't, and there's nothing wrong with someone wanting to have that full amount, because listen, I know some people that have completely turned their lives off once they had their kids, and then those kids start suffering as a result of that, because now that parent is living vicariously through them as opposed to doing what they're supposed to be as a parent. And I have my own issues with regards to that. So that's why I really liked, what this episode was trying to do. And I really am sad that the director wasn't able to make it come across as strong as it needed to be.
I accept that the director maybe wasn't the best and that the pacing was off. And I agree with a lot of the comments that I read. It seems like Nick maybe had a technical issue, so
and his phone was going to die because he hadn't gone home to charge it.
In any case, if we don't see Nick again today, I just want to thank him for being here. And you should, of course, check out Backyard Tardis and Adventures in Locksmithing, which is his 2 channels. But back to what we were discussing, I agree, with what you were saying, both you and Ro. It's not the best episode when it comes to the technical side. It's not the best the way it's directed. There were some lighting things that even I noticed. Certainly there's a lot of issues here, but I do think that there's something interesting about the idea. And I even like that they tried this kind of red herring, that the whole time you think it's this guy that's going to be taking her away. Mm-hmm. And at the end, it's just sort of a surprise that she just ended up just slipping off a cliff because she slipped. And I don't know why. I feel like there aren't many episodes that do that kind of lead you so strongly in one direction, only to have it completely go in another direction. And yeah, it's a bit out of left field, but I kind of liked it. I think that the last third of the episode redeems maybe a lot of issues that happened prior in the episode, but I can understand maybe it's not everybody's favorite. I still, like I always say, even episodes of Quantum Leap that may not be the best episode are usually still better than a lot of other shows, even ones that are made today. And I still think that there's value in this episode, and especially like you guys said, or what you said, Script, that the idea here of this story is good. Maybe even the script was better than what we saw here because it was betrayed by the director. But it is what it is, and we all have our opinions, and that's why we have this panel where we all discuss our opinions. And before we head out, I want to also say thank you to all the people who are here in the chat and try to go one by one. Let's just quickly go through it. Ron Donofero, Tex Rogers, Kit Kat, Lisa Katryan. Did I miss anybody? I know there were more people. I'm just trying to quickly scroll.
Kit Kat
I mentioned, but Matthew McGee,
Film Watcher 96,
Mur Rockstra, Film Watcher, yes, Film Watcher. I think he really wanted to talk about Linkin Park.
Oh, that's right.
That was his main interest. Mur Rockstra, I said that, I think.
Yes.
DJ Play Nice. DJ Play Nice, a lot of times he shows up on a stream and he writes, "Wee." So that's
so he's having fun.
He's having fun. Stopping by to thumbs up and live and say, hey, have an awesome evening. You too. You also have an awesome evening. We said Matthew McGee. Did I say Super Mario Brothers 3?
3 times.
And there's Caleb Levine, Scribe Light. We had your friend Tim, I believe. Is it Tim Talks?
Yes.
Tim Talks. That was another person that was here.
Good chap.
And I think that we went through most of the people. If I missed somebody, I apologize. We tried One Punch Man, Tolkien fan. We got that too. And yeah, if I missed anybody, I apologize. We try to go over it. And for those who are kind of more, I don't know if to call them lurkers, that they kind of watch but they don't always comment. I actually know some of you, which I sometimes hear from you privately, and also from the people that later watch. Usually Joshua Calkins watches it at a later time, and a few other people. So always great to interact with you all. Always fun to do this. Thank you again to our panel of guests. Row at the Sacrif Podcast. You should check out it podcast everywhere that they have podcasts. Scripts on Saturdays, every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. on this channel, Script Doctor. He also has his Patreon. I guess that's it. Do you guys still have anything to add before we go?
No, I think we covered it.
I think we did too. And now what we're going to do is we're going to play our outro. And thanks to Nick, the Backyard Tardis again. And now we'll do the outro.